Hello guys, I'm Julien Laurence and I'm joined today by our Real Madrid correspondent Alex Kirkland to discuss the winner of the best goalkeeper in our ESPN FC 100. The winner, Alex, is obviously Thibaut Courtois of Real Madrid and Belgium.
Yeah, look, for me, he's the best, Jules. For me, he's the number one. I put him top of my list. I still think, we can talk a bit about the season that he's had and, of course, that Real Madrid have had. But I still think for me, if there's one goalkeeper in the world who would put your life on making a save, I
Yeah.
still think it's Thibaut Courtois. I think in a way, I think like a lot of truly great players, I think he's penalised a bit by just how consistently excellent he's been. I think we almost start to take it for granted. You don't notice. Courtois makes another amazing save. You don't remark on it in the same way that you would if it's almost any other goalkeepers. I think he suffers a bit for that. I mean, maybe he's had more work to do this season. It's
Yeah.
fair to say because, like I say, Madrid have struggled. But I think there's still been some moments where you see his quality. I was thinking back, and I was at the Emirates for the game against Arsenal, for example. I don't know if you remember, there was that double save that he made just before half time. I think it was from Rice and then from Martinelli. Moments like that where you still think, wow, this guy is the best. Now, of course, on that night, it didn't matter in the end because Madrid lost the game. There was nothing Courtois could do about those Declan Rice free kicks. But no, for me, like I say, Courtois is still the best, still the most consistent, even if this hasn't been his most outstanding season.
Yeah, I agree with you. I put him top of my ranking as well because I think even if you're right, it's not his best season, but there's reasons for that. As you explained, he was behind a defense that was a makeshift defense for most of the season because of all the injuries, because of all the changes of positions and the change of personnel as well in that back four for Real Madrid. And I don't think that's easy, and that maybe explains why in the leagues only, I think he started 30 games, conceded 29 goals. So a goal per game is not great when you are Thibaut Courtois and you are the Real Madrid goalkeeper. In the Champions League, it's even worse because he played 12 games and they conceded 18 goals, one clean sheet is not enough, especially for somebody who's made that competition his own, like his club. But again, there are reasons, I think, for the fact that he was very much more exposed and you can make two great saves. But if you have to make 4 or 5 in the same game, even for Thibaut Courtois, that becomes impossible. But what do you think he would think about his own season? If he was with us here on the show, what do you think he would say about his own season? Do you think he would be disappointed? Is that kind of guy to look back and be disappointed and be more hungry to do better next season? Or would he just have reasons to explain why this season maybe was not the best?
You know what? He's one of the absolute best players to listen to in post-match interviews after games because he's so honest, he's so analytical, he really understands the game, and he talks about performances, his own performances, and those of his teammates sometimes as well, with real honesty. And like I say, he's great to listen to. I think he would want to point to that context, which is the one that you've just given, which is Real Madrid's season has been poor, the defence have been a shambles, the whole team as a defensive unit has been a shambles, and that means that Courtois has been exposed. Real Madrid ended the season without any of their first choice back four in the team. As a goalkeeper, that's tough. And he's talked about this season. He's been really quite critical in a way of aspects of the way the team have played. He talked about how the team needs to be less kind of individualistic and more of a collective. He came out and said that. So I think that he would point to kind of the wider issues around the team. Look, personally as well, maybe it hasn't been his best campaign. He, of course, had a difficult couple of years, hasn't he? Because he had last season where he was injured pretty much the entire season. Lunin played in goal for Real Madrid. Courtois came back right at the end when they won the Champions League. He's come back into the team. He's been, like you say, pretty much playing right the way through the season with one or two minor injuries. It hasn't been the levels that we saw, say, in 2022. Everyone remembers that final against Liverpool in Paris at one of the all-time great goalkeeping performances. But still, you look at a number of Real Madrid games, and while Madrid haven't been playing well, there are quite a few games in the league. I was looking back where they won a game by one goal. They won 1-0 or they won 2-1. And in each of those games, you could point to one really big save that Courtois made. So I think actually if it wasn't for him, I mean, we think Madrid's season has been bad because they didn't win a major trophy, no La Liga, no Copa del Rey, no Champions League. If it wasn't for Thibaut Courtois, I think it would have been a lot worse.
Yeah, I agree. So he finished first in all our voting for the ESPN FC 100, ahead of Alisson from Liverpool and Brazil and Gianluigi Donnarumma from PSG.
Would you have made a case for Donnarumma? Would he have been your guy based on this season?
Yeah, I think so. I think I had him second in my list. And again, we sent that list, I think, if I remember well, beginning of April, maybe, or something like that. So pre a lot of Donnarumma's exploit in the Champions League and things like that. I don't think there's much, for example, between them three. Really, it depends what kind of goalkeeper you also like. Donnarumma is obviously much younger than both Alisson and especially Courtois, who's 33 now. So Courtois, I know goalkeepers can play longer than outfield players, but still for Courtois at 33, it's it's getting closer towards the end. I don't think there's much, because Alisson has been very good in the Liverpool team now, especially in the league, has been super dominant. And I'm not sure how much we take from the fact that Liverpool were in the league of their own in the Premier League. So he hasn't, maybe was not exposed, or didn't have that much work to do compared to a Courtois. Donnarumma is probably the same in the French league, where PSG were obviously super dominant, but in the Champions League, that's where Donnarumma was really outstanding. So Donnarumma, maybe, I think that top three is probably fair, and then you can just put it in the order that you want, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Donnarumma, of course, didn't have much to do in the Champions League final, but I think back to that semi-final against Arsenal, there were one or two saves that he made there in particular. Again, talk about Courtois making kind of miracle saves that you think, is there another goalkeeper that could do that? Is there another keeper that could get to that ball? Of course, Courtois' height is a big part of that, and Donnarumma is the same, a very, very big keeper. There were one or two saves, I think, in that Arsenal time in particular, that you thought almost no other goalkeeper could make. No other keeper would reach that ball to get his fingertips to it, to tip it around the post. So yeah, I think you can make a case for Donnarumma. I think he's rightly there in the top three. Although, like I say, when it got to the biggest game, of course, the final, he had very little to do.
Yeah, and then Alisson, the consistency is there. I think he was in our top three for the last few seasons, really. And maybe, again, the fact that for Liverpool, the Champions League campaign stopped really early, and they were very impressive in the league phase. And then after that, the next games, they were beaten by PSG in a penalty shootout, where Alisson could not get really anywhere close to saving a penalty. So maybe that's also part of the reason why he's in second and Courtois is in first. Do you think that, just to finish on Thibaut, obviously Xabi Alonso has arrived now at Real Madrid. It's the start of a new era, really, and very much Courtois in it for 2, 3, 4, I don't know how many years. But I think he will probably welcome something new, right? And for him as well, forget about last season, forget about the season before that you mentioned. Even with the Champions League triumph against Borussia Dortmund at Wembley, it was a blank season pretty much. And he'd be ready for this fresh start.
Yeah, I think he'll welcome it. I think, like I say, there've been little signs from Courtois this season that there've been moments of frustration from him, wanting more from the team, wanting the team to be a little bit more disciplined, a little bit more organised, a bit more rigour to the way the team is prepared. I think he obviously, like any player, tried to sort of keep that mostly to himself, but you could get little hints of that in things that he was saying after games, after defeats and after disappointments. And I think he will welcome having a coach like Xabi Alonso, who is going to be incredibly detail orientated in terms of the training, preparing the team, setting up the team. I think that Courtois will welcome that. I think he'll love it, because Courtois really is a top pro. You talk about him showing no signs of slowing down at this age. It's because of the way that he looks after himself, the way that he trains, how seriously he takes it. And having a coach like Xabi Alonso is so demanding of all of his players. Yeah, I think that would be good for Courtois. I think he'll enjoy that.
I agree, man. I agree.